I didn't come to this ranch looking for anything but work. The truck rattled over the last gravel stretch, kicking up dust that stung my eyes like old regrets. 5 years ago, after the kind of heartbreak that hollows you out, I needed space. Vast, empty space. The air hit me first, dry and sharp, carrying the scent of sagebrush and sun-baked earth. Silence wrapped around everything, broken only by the wind whispering through the fence wire. That's when I met her. She was already here, mending a fence post. Her hands were scarred maps of this place, calloused from years of roping and repair, steady as the earth itself. And her presence was like the bedrock beneath the shifting sands. Unmoving, reliable, the quiet force that both anchored the ranch and threatened to unsettle the walls I'd built around my own hollowed heart, drawing me in with a steadiness that echoed the long silences I'd come to cherish and fear. We'd become partners since, sharing the endless chores, the long days that blurred into nights, but I kept my distance, drawn to her quiet strength even as I feared what it might pull from the fragile ground I'd claimed for myself. 5 years of side-by-side labor, and the deeper pull stayed buried, like roots under frozen ground. Ranch life starts before dawn, when the skies still bruise purple and the cold bites through your jacket. I wake to the rooster's call, sharp as a spur, and pull on boots caked with yesterday's mud. Coffee brews on the wood stove, black and bitter, the only warmth before heading out. We check the fences first, miles of wire stretching across the flats, holding in the cattle that roam like shadows in the mist. I grab the pliers and ride out on the old mare, her hooves thudding soft against the packed dirt. The work is rhythm. Snip the rusted barbs, twist new wire tight. Drive posts deep into the reluctant soil. My hands ache from the pull, calluses building like walls around what I won't say. She rides alongside sometimes, her horse matching my pace without a word. We've got this unspoken divide. Me handling the north pastures alone most days, her taking the south. I mend fences not just for the herd, but for myself, hammering stakes to keep things in line. Talk stays on the practical. Water levels low in the trough, coyotes circling the cabs at night. Personal? That's off limits. I learned that early, after the city woman who left me cracked open, her words like a stampede trampling everything soft inside. No more letting anyone close enough to see the scars. She's different, though. Strong in that quiet way, like the cottonwoods rooted deep against the wind. Her hands are maps of this place, calloused palms from roping, fingers scarred from branding irons and thorn scratches. She's competent without show, saddling up at first light, her movements efficient, no wasted effort. I watch her sometimes, when she thinks I'm focused elsewhere. The way she knots the lasso, quick and sure, or wipes sweat from her brow with the back of her wrist, leaving a streak of dust. Her shoulders carry the weight of the work, broad and unyielding, hair tied back in the loose braid that escapes in wisps during the heat. She's from these parts, I figure, voice low and steady, like the rumble of thunder far off. We share meals at the rough-hewn table, beans and cornbread steaming in tin plates, but our knees don't touch under it. The isolation seeps in with the landscape. Endless horizons where sky meets prairie, long silences that stretch like the barbed wire between posts. Out here, you're alone even together, the vastness swallowing words before they form. It's a mercy, that quiet. Lets me hold on to the barrier, the one built from that past ache, sharp as a fresh cut. But the days grind on, chores blending into one another. Hauling hay bales from the barn, the twine biting into my gloves as I stack them high in the loft. She forks the loose straw below, her breath even, muscles shifting under her shirt like the roll of hills at dusk. I catch myself lingering on those details, the flex of her forearm, the way dust clings to her skin like a second layer. It's dangerous territory, that noticing, stirring something I buried deep after the heartbreak. That woman from before, she was wildfire, bright, consuming, gone in ashes. Left me sifting through the rubble, vowing no more flames. Here, with her steady rhythm, I feel the pull of solid ground, but fear roots me in place. We had a rhythm to this life, a steady, predictable beat. Then one evening, after checking the herd under a sky turning orange, we load the truck for the drive back. It's routine. Her tossing feed sacks into the bed, me securing the tarp against the coming chill. The engine coughs to life, and we rumble down the dirt track, the cab filling with the scent of leather and earth. The radio's static hums low, but tonight something shifts in the air between us, thick as the dust settling on the windshield. She'd been to town that morning, something about picking up parts for the windmill. I was out by the corral when her truck pulled up, tires crunching gravel like brittle bones. The door creaked open, and she stepped out, but it wasn't her usual stride. Her hair was shorter, cropped close on the sides, the rest falling in uneven waves that caught the wind. She'd always worn it long, tied back practical against the sweat and dust. Now it framed her face softer, exposing the curve of her neck, the line of her jaw sharper than I'd remembered. Vulnerability hung there, like a fence post left leaning after a storm. My chest tightened, a vice of ribs squeezing breath. I turned back to the gate, pretending to check the latch, but my eyes pulled to her. She moved with that same competence, unloading boxes from the bed, nails, wire, a new coil of rope. But her posture shifted, shoulders less squared, as if the town air had loosened something. It was small, that change, but it cracked the familiar shell. 5 years, and I'd relied on her unyielding edges, the way she anchored the ranch like bedrock. "Looks like you found everything," I said, voice flat as the prairie. Dry comment to patch the boundary, keep it all working wire. She glanced up, wiping her hands on her jeans, a faint smile tugging her mouth. "Yeah, mostly. Mechanic threw in some extras." Her tone even, unaware of the tremor she'd stirred. We hauled the supplies to the shed together, boxes heavy with metal clank. I grabbed one end of the crate, she the other, and as we swung it onto the shelf, her fingers brushed mine. Accidental, just knuckles grazing in the dim light filtering through cracked boards. But a jolt shot up my arm, hot as barbed wire fresh from the fire. I jerked back, the crate thudding uneven, nails spilling like scattered thoughts. She steadied it quick, her brow furrowing. "You all right? Slipped there." "Fine," I muttered, shoving the nails into place, heart pounding like a hammer on anvil. Inside, panic roiled. Her touch lingered, warm against the cold knot in my gut. This was her, solid, the kind of strength that held through droughts and blizzards. Not like the one before, who tore through me like a flash flood, leaving gullies and mudslide wreckage. That woman had promised forever, then vanished, her absence carving canyons in what I'd trusted. I'd come here to mend, not break again. But her steadiness pulled, a gravity I couldn't outrun, tempting me toward the edge. She watched me a beat longer, eyes searching like she scanned for strays in the brush. Concern softened her gaze, heightening the air between us, thick with what neither would name. I busied my hands, coiling the rope tight, but the tension coiled tighter in me. Clouds gathered on the horizon as we finished, dark swells rolling in like a herd stampeding. Thunder grumbled low, mirroring the storm building inside, the one threatening to flood the dry beds I'd kept empty. The first drops hit like scattered pebbles, then the sky unleashed. Wind howled across the flats, bending the grass low, and we barely made it to the barn before the downpour sheeted everything in gray. Lightning cracked, illuminating the rafters, and thunder rolled deep, shaking the timbers. Power lines must have snapped somewhere. Lights flickered once and died, leaving us in a hush broken only by the rain's roar on the tin roof. She lit the lanterns quick, flames sputtering to life in the draft. Their glow danced on the walls, casting her face in shifting gold and shadow, cheekbones sharp, eyes reflecting the wick's steady burn. We hunkered down on hay bales in the corner, the air thick with damp earth and the musty scent of stored feed. No choice but close quarters. The storm pinned us, whirled outside a blur of water and wind. The rain settled into a rhythm, steady as a heartbeat on the roof. It pulled words from the quiet, the kind we usually let fade. "Reminds me of storms back home," she said, voice low over the drum. Dad had herd us into the cellar, tell stories till the worst passed. Ghosts in the wheat fields, mostly. Her smile ghosted, eyes distant. like she saw those fields now, endless under lightning. I nodded, knees drawn up, the bale prickling through my jeans. We'd huddle by the fire. Mom baked bread in the oven, even if it was summer. Said it kept the fear out. Simple memory, but it opened something, the rain washing away the day's grit. She shifted, her shoulder brushing mine, accidental in the tight space. Warmth seeped through, solid as sun-warmed rock. She talked more then, words unfolding slow. Summers chasing cabs through mud, learning to read the sky's moods by the hawk's flight. Her voice wove with the rain, revealing layers I'd skimmed over. A sister lost young to the river, the way she'd mended fences alone after, hands blistering but holding. Hidden depths, like aquifers under cracked earth, sustaining without show. The lantern light softened her edges, flickering on the fine lines around her eyes, the curve of her collarbone where rain had soaked her shirt. Proximity amplified it all, her warmth radiating, breath even, scent of clean sweat and wet leather mingling with the hay. I felt every inch, the space between us shrinking to nothing, her presence a pull like gravity in the dark. My turn came reluctant, rain pounding harder. Had someone once, I started, words sticking like mud on boots. City type. Promised the world then left it in pieces. Heartbreak like a drought, dries everything brittle. Oblique, no names, but the ache surfaced, raw as exposed root. She didn't push, just listened, her gaze steady, cutting through the walls I'd hammered up. Empathy showed in her nod, quiet but deep. Sounds like losing a season. You rebuild, slow, layer by layer. No pity, just understanding. Her words a balm on scorched ground. It pierced, defenses cracking under that unflinching care. 5 years, and she'd been the constant, roping strays, sharing the load, while I guarded my fractures, fearing another quake. Guilt rose then, sharp as thistle. I'd taken her steadiness for granted, leaned on it like a fence post in wind, never asking what storms she weathered alone. Out here, isolation bred that, vast land swallowing needs unspoken. But in the barn's glow, with rain sealing us in, I saw her fully. Not just partner, but woman carrying her own weights, offering shelter without demand. She reached for the wool blanket draped over a beam, shaking it out. Chill's coming, she murmured, draping it over our shoulders. Fabric settled heavy, her arm grazing mine in the fold. Subtle brush of knuckles on my wrist, testing the air like a breeze before thunder. I froze, pulse quickening, the touch lingering longer than needed. Warmth spread, dangerous, inviting. Neither pulled away. The rain eased to a patter, storm spent, but the charged hush stayed, thick as fog rolling off the creek. Lanterns burned low as we stepped out at dawn, world washed clean, mud slick under boots. Daily work waited, fences to mend, herd to check, but the silence between us hummed now, alive with what the night had stirred. Sun beat down on the north pasture, turning the air to a shimmer off the wire. I rode out early, pliers in my belt, the post digger slung over the saddle horn. Fences needed mending after the storm. Gaps where wind had snapped lines, posts tilted like weary spines. My mare picked her way through the mud, hooves sucking at the softened earth, and I focused on that rhythm, letting it drown the barn's echo in my head. But awareness clung, sharp as burrs in wool. Every glance toward the south ridge pulled my eyes to her silhouette, moving with that unhurried grace. We met at the boundary line, her horse tied to a fence post, tools scattered like shed antlers. "Storm did a number here," she said, wiping sweat from her neck, sleeve riding up to show the corded muscle of her arm. I nodded, dismounting quick, grabbing the wire stretcher. Work side by side, bodies close in the tight weave of posts. Her shoulder bumped mine as we hauled the new roll from the truck bed, the contact brief but searing, like touching sun-heated metal. Heat flushed my skin, not from the labor, but from the nearness, her breath even, scent of earth and faint soap cutting through the dust. I pulled away sharp, stepping back to the fence line, heart thudding against my ribs like a calf testing gates. Rebuild the walls, quick and firm. Focus on the task. Hammer the staple in harder than needed. Let the ache in my hand remind me of boundaries. 5 years of this dance. Partners in labor, not in the deeper churn. That touch lingered, though. a crack in the dry soil, threatening flood. She noticed, of course. Her eyes flicked to me as we stretched the wire taut, her hands steady on the come-along, pulling with quiet power. I fumbled the clip, dropping it into the grass, and she paused, brow creasing slight. "You're off today," she said, voice low, not accusing, just probing gentle as a hand on a skittish horse's flank. "Something on your mind?" "Nothing but this fence," I replied, snatching the clip, voice clipped as the wire we worked. Lie thin as stretched hide, but I drove it home, turning to the next post, digging deeper into the earth. Her gaze lingered, unflinching, like the sun on exposed rock, warming what I'd keep shaded. She didn't push, just resumed, but the question hung, stirring the silt I'd settled. Extra labor seemed the cure. Push harder. Tire the body to quiet the mind. I volunteered for the far stretch alone, riding out till dusk painted the hills red. Posts driven one after another, wire singing tight under tension, sweat soaking my shirt to cling like second skin. Muscles burned, a welcome fire, chasing away the pull of her warmth, the way her presence anchored yet unsettled. But failure crept in with the shadows. Each hammer strike echoed that brush of shoulders, the accidental press in tight space. No dismissal, just amplification. The work fueling the fire instead of dousing it. Dusk fell heavy as we loaded tools into the truck bed, the day's end pulling us toward home. She slid into the driver's seat, engine rumbling to life, headlights cutting the gathering dark. The cab filled with heavy air, thick as before rain humidity, unspoken words pressing against the windows like fog. Radio static crackled low, but silence dominated, her hands firm on the wheel, knuckles pale in the dash glow. I stared out at the passing ridges, their outlines blurring, but felt her every shift. The turn of her head, the quiet exhale. Inside, debate raged, a wind whipping through canyons. Her stability drew me, solid as the ranch's backbone, the kind of strength that weathered seasons without cracking. 5 years of shared loads, her quiet competence a balm on old wounds. But risk loomed, vast as the empty flats. Another loss, heartbreak like a prairie fire, scorching what little I'd rebuilt. The one before had uprooted me, left me adrift in city smoke, vowing solitude over surrender. Here, with her, the pull felt like roots seeking water, inevitable, terrifying. Stability or shatter? The question looped, heart heavy as the truck's load. We rattled on, miles unspooling under tires. The air between us charged, waiting for spark. But no words broke it, just the hum of the road, carrying us toward the cabin's lights. Next morning, routine turned mishap. A bale slipped from the loft as I stacked hay. Weight shifting, sudden, pulling me off balance toward the hard floor below. The bale teetered, then plunged, its weight yanking me sideways off the ladder. Hay exploded in a golden cloud, scratching my arms as I twisted mid-fall. Time stretched, the loft floor rushing up like a hard-packed earth after drought. Then her hands clamped my waist, firm and unyielding, pulling me back against her body. She steadied me there, one arm around my middle, the other gripping the ladder rung above. Her breath came quick against my neck, warm in the cool barn air. I caught my own breath, ragged, the world snapping back. Her touch burned through my shirt, fingers splayed wide over my ribs, holding me upright. Body betrayed me instant, muscles softening into her grip, a shiver running down my spine like wind through dry grass. Guarded resolve crumbled, just for that beat, her strength wrapping me like a lasso, gentle but sure. I shouldn't lean in, shouldn't feel the solid press of her chest to my back, but I did. Pulse thundering in my ears louder than the scattered hay settling. She eased me down, hands lingering a second too long before releasing. Our eyes met as my boots hit the floor, hers wide with surprise, mine flickering back the same, plus something rawer, a recognition that sparked like flint on steel. Mutual, unspoken, the air between us humming with it. Her gaze held mine, searching, a flicker of surprise mirroring my own, like we'd both glimpsed the hidden creek under the parched ground. I stepped back quick, breaking the hold, cheeks hot as sun-scorched rock. Sloppy, I muttered, bending to gather the scattered bales, avoiding her face. Heart still raced, her touch imprinted, warm outlines on my skin. She nodded, silent, but helped without a word, stacking beside me, our movements careful now, space enforced like a fresh fence line. Rest of the morning, I retreated to the far corral, checking latches and feeding the horses alone. But hyper-awareness dogged me, sharp as a spur's prick. Her scent clung, faint leather and sweat, mixing with the hay dust, pulling my thoughts back every time I shook a trough. Sounds, too. The thud of her boots in the yard, the low murmur of her voice to the dogs, carrying on the breeze like distant thunder warning. I hammered nails into the gate harder, trying to drive it out, but it persisted, weaving through the day's grind, turning every chore into a reminder of that grip, that unintended anchor. Night fell heavy, exhaustion pulling me to bed early, but sleep fractured, dreams twisting through the dark. I saw us riding the ridges at dawn, her hand reaching across the saddle horn, fingers intertwining like vines claiming a fence post. Tender longing bloomed in the visions, her palm against mine under starlit sky, steady as the land itself, pulling me from the isolation of cracked earth. Ranch metaphors bled in, us mending a storm-torn wire together, bodies close in the wind, her warmth thawing the frost I'd let settle inside. Woke sweating, sheets tangled like barbed wire, the ache deeper, a canyon carved by what I craved but feared. Days blurred into an exhausting week, hauling water from the creek when the pump failed, wrestling a lame calf back to the barn under relentless sun. Muscles screamed, but the real strain was internal, her presence a constant pull, every glance loaded. We shared the load, wordless mostly, but tension simmered, thick as dust before rain. Evening of the 7th day, we sat to supper at the scarred oak table, cornbread crumbling warm, stew steaming in bowls chipped from years. Lantern light pooled yellow, softening the room's rough edges. She ladled seconds, her arm brushing mine accidental, and I didn't pull away this time. Silence stretched, then broke soft. "You've been quiet," she said, eyes on her spoon, voice low as creek water over stones. Not probing hard, just opening the gate a crack. I stirred my bowl, steam rising like unspoken breath. Vulnerability cracked then, slow as ice shifting on the pond. That fall shook me more than the bale, I admitted, words tumbling reluctant. Brought up old ground, losing someone who unraveled everything. Afraid of that again, with you here, steady like this place. Oblique still, but raw, the past's shadow spilling out, heartbreak like a flash flood scouring the soil bare. She set her spoon down, gaze meeting mine unflinching, empathy etching her face like wind on canyon walls. Steady don't mean unbreakable. But I've been here, waiting for the ground to settle. Her hand hovered near mine on the table, not touching, but close enough the air warmed. Cracks widened, vulnerability spilling into the space between. The ranch's isolation feeling less like barrier, more like witness. We left the table with the unspoken hanging heavy, but the real test came later. Week's toll weighed heavy, chores piling till late. That night, after checking the distant herd under a moonless sky, we climbed into the truck for the long drive back. Headlights carving the dark, exhaustion lowering every defense as the ridges swallowed us whole. The truck groaned up the first ridge, engine straining against the incline, headlights slicing narrow paths through the black. Stars pricked the sky overhead, vast and indifferent, the kind that make you feel small as a fence post in a storm. Exhaustion settled deep in my bones, heavy as wet hay after rain, blurring the edges of my thoughts. We'd ridden out to the far herd at dusk, checking for strays under the fading light. And now the drive back stretched endless, miles of dirt track winding through the darkening hills. My eyelids drooped, but sleep wouldn't come, not with her beside me. The cab's confines pressing us close, her knee inches from mine on the bench seat. She drove steady, hands loose on the wheel, the gearshift between us like a barbed wire divide. Conversation had died with the engine's rumble, replaced by the crunch of tires on gravel and the occasional low of cattle fading behind. Fatigue lowered my defenses, walls I'd built high, cracking under the weight of the day. I shifted, arm brushing the door, and let out a sigh that carried too much. The week's grind, the unspoken pull, the fear gnawing like a coyote at the edges. "You sound beat," she said, voice cutting the quiet, soft but clear over the engine's hum. Her eyes flicked to me, then back to the road, concern etching her profile in the dash glow. No more words, just her right hand lifting from the wheel, reaching across the gearshift in a simple gesture of comfort. Fingers extended, palm up, offering without demand, like a hand extended over a canyon gap. I froze, body going rigid as a post driven too deep. Her hand hovered there, warm in the cool night air seeping through the vents, inches from my thigh. Heart thudded like distant thunder rolling in from the plains, deep and ominous, shaking the cab's confines. The offer hung, innocent yet loaded, stirring the silt I'd let settle. 5 years of partnership, her steady hand in every chore, every storm, and now this small reach threatened to uproot it all. Instinct surged, fear sharp as a spur's rowel. I pulled back, pressing against the door, hand clenching in my lap like a fist around reins. The motion jerked, abrupt, shattering the quiet moment. Partnership fragile as dry creek bed. One wrong step, and it crumbled to dust, washing away the trust we'd built, bale by bale, fence by fence. What if this broke us? Her as partner, anchor in the isolation, gone if I let the deeper current pull. The one before had shattered that kind of bond, left me adrift in wreckage, vowing no more ties that could snap. She withdrew her hand slow. No offense in the motion, just a quiet settle back to the wheel. Silence thickened, heavy as fog off the river, the stars above mocking the tension below. My chest ached, regret mixing with the fear, a churn like mud after flash flood. I'd pulled away to save us, but the distance yawned wider, the cab feeling smaller, air taut as wire before it sings. Words spilled then, fragments tumbling unbidden, exhaustion cracking the dam. "Can't do this," I started, voice rough as gravel under tires. "Not after her. She came like summer rain, sweet at first, then flooded everything. Left me cracked open, soil eroded to nothing. You're different. Solid, like these ridges. But if I reach, what if it pulls you under too? 5 years, and I can't lose that." Past pain versus present pull, warred in the words, raw as exposed root after plow. Heartbreak's echo, sharp as thorn scratch, clashing with her draw. The strength that held through winds, the quiet that soothed without words. Confession hung between us, broken phrases like scattered posts after gale. Vulnerability bared in the dark. She didn't flinch, gaze steady on the road but feeling it pierce the gloom. Unflinching, like oak bent but unbroken, inviting without force. "I've seen floods come and go," she said finally, voice low, steady as the engine's pulse. "Roots find water anyway. Been waiting for you to see that." No pressure, just truth laid bare, her eyes meeting mine at a curve, deep as canyon shadow, pulling me toward the edge she'd guard. Tension peaked in the confined truck cab, stars wheeling overhead as we crested the last ridge, the world narrowing to her gaze, the space between shrinking under that unflinching invite, headlights sweeping toward home's distant glow. The truck crested the final ridge, engine settling to a low growl as the cabin lights flickered into view, faint as fireflies against the black. Stars hung thick overhead, a blanket of pinpricks over the endless flats, the night air cool and sharp through the cracked window. Her words lingered, roots finding water, pulling at the edges of my fear like vines testing soil. The gearshift sat between us, a silent barrier, but the space felt charged, humming with the weight of what I'd spilled. Exhaustion blurred everything, but her presence sharpened it, solid, waiting. She slowed the truck, pulling off the track onto a flat overlook where the land dropped away, ridges folding into shadow below. Engine cut, silence rushed in, broken only by the tick of cooling metal and our breaths sinking slow. "Look," she said, nodding to the sky. But her eyes stayed on me, steady as the horizon line. I followed anyway, stars wheeling vast, making the world feel small, intimate in its isolation. Her hand moved again, deliberate this time, crossing the divide to cover mine where it rested on my thigh. Fingers warm, calluses rough from rope and rain, intertwining slow, like braiding wire to hold a fence true. The hand-holding ignited something tender, a spark in dry tinder. Heat spread from her palm, thawing the frost I'd carried 5 years, pulse quickening like a heartbeat under sod. I didn't pull away, couldn't, the grip anchoring me against the pull of old fears. Her thumb traced my knuckles, gentle circles, and the cab shrank to just us, the rural night enveloping like a wool blanket against wind. Isolation, once a wall of vast empty, became sanctuary now. The stars witnesses to the shift, the land below holding us steady. She turned toward me, face half lit by starlight filtering through the windshield, eyes deep as canyon pools at dusk. "Been feeling this too," she whispered, voice rough with the weight of unspoken years. Her free hand rose, hesitant, cupping my jaw, thumb brushing my cheek where tension had etched lines. I leaned in, breath catching, the air thick with sage and her scent, earth and faint sweat from the day's end. Lips brushed then, hesitant kiss, soft as dew on grass at dawn, tasting of salt and promise. Not wildfire, but embers glowing steady, igniting passion tender, reserved, building slow like roots pushing through clay. The kiss deepened, her hand sliding to the nape of my neck, fingers threading my hair loose from its tie. I melted into it, guarded walls dissolving like mist under sun, body pressing closer across the seat, her strength wrapping me full. Embrace shifted then, from the careful distance of partners to openly vulnerable acceptance. Arms around her waist, pulling her in, the gearshift forgotten, knees tangling in the narrow space. Her lips parted, breath mingling hot, the kiss turning urgent yet soft, tongues touching like streams meeting after drought. Vulnerability poured out, raw as exposed earth after rain. My hands clutching her shirt, feeling the rise of her ribs, the thud of her heart matching mine. We broke apart, gasping, foreheads resting, breaths ragged in the quiet cab. Rural night held us, wind whispering through the scrub outside, isolation cradling the moment like a hidden valley. No rush of words, just her fingers tracing my arm, grounding. The stars above indifferent but eternal. Whispers came then, affirming the unspoken love of 5 years. Labors shared under sun and storm, glances stolen in the saddle. The quiet pull building like sediment layering stone. "Knew it from the first fence we mended together," she murmured, voice low against my ear. Your hands fitting the rhythm, steady beside mine. I nodded, words failing, but my squeeze of her hand said it. 5 years of buried roots surfacing, love enduring as the land itself, weathered but whole. Morning broke clear, sun spilling gold over the ridges, the truck still parked where we'd left it, bodies tangled in the wide bench seat under a shared blanket from the back. Sleep had come, deep, dreamless, her arm draped over my waist, breath warm on my shoulder. We stirred slow, no awkward scramble, just smiles breaking as eyes met. Hers soft, mine unguarded for the first time in years. Breakfast waited in the cabin, but we lingered, her fingers lingering on my cheek, a kiss pressed to my temple, light as morning dew. Routines transformed that day, chores laced with new rhythm. Saddling the horses side by side, her hand brushing my back as she passed the bridle, a smile tugging when our eyes caught. Out in the pastures, mending wire under the climbing sun, bodies close without pull away, her shoulder leaning into mine during the stretch. Smiles came easy now, shared over the water trough, her laugh low when a calf nudged us both. Lingering touches, fingers grazing in the hayloft, a hand on the small of my back steering through the barn door. Turning labor intimate, the ranch alive with it. Emotional arc completed there, in the mutual resilience against past fears. Heartbreak's shadow, once a canyon swallowing light, shrank under her steadiness, the terror of letting in fading like fog at noon. She'd been the ridge all along, unmovable, drawing me from the brink. Together, we faced the work, hands linked brief at day's end, fears weathered like the posts we drove, stronger for the storms. Days folded into weeks, the ranch's rhythm shifting subtle, like seasons turning without fanfare. Our partnership integrated deeper now, open affection weaving through the daily grind like wildflowers threading barbed wire. Morning started the same, boots on before light, coffee steaming in tin mugs. But her hand would find mine across the table, fingers lacing, brief, warm as sun on dew-kissed grass. No hiding the glances anymore, the way my eyes traced her braid swinging as she saddled the mare, or how she'd pause mid-chore to brush dust from my collar, thumb lingering on my neck. Affection bloomed quiet, in the press of her shoulder against mine hauling feed sacks, or the low laugh shared when a colt nipped at our heels. The work felt lighter, shared not just in labor, but in the undercurrent. Her presence, a steady pulse, syncing with mine. Out here, rural conservatism pressed like wind against a lone cottonwood. Neighbors in distant spreads, church talk drifting on AM radio, eyes narrowing at anything beyond the straight lines of fence and family. Whispers might come if they saw us too close, hands touching in the yard, or the truck parked longer at overlooks under stars. Folks round these parts held to old ways, marriages mended like boots, love fitting neat boxes of man and wife. But we embraced it together, her arm around my waist as we rode the boundary lines, defying the vast empty with our quiet claim. "Let 'em talk," she'd murmur, voice low against the wind, her grip tightening like roots anchoring against erosion. No grandstands, just us facing it side by side. Resilience built in the shared silences, the land's isolation turning shield instead of cage. Challenges acknowledged in passing. A sidelong glance from the feed store clerk, radio sermons fading as we switched stations. But we leaned into each other, her strength bolstering mine, turning potential storms to passing clouds. Sensory details laced the labor now, passion threading every task like hidden springs feeding dry creek beds. Hauling water from the irrigation ditch, bucket sloshing heavy, her free hand would graze my hip, sending sparks up my spine sharper than sunlight on rippling waves. In the barn at dusk, forking hay into stalls, the air thick with sweet dust motes dancing in lantern glow, she'd pull me close, mid-pitch, lips brushing my temple, breath hot against my ear like summer thunder rumbling near. Sweat mingled on our skin during fence mends, her body pressing back to mine as we stretched wire taut, the flex of her muscles under my palm igniting a slow burn, deeper than the day's heat. Evenings by the fire, embers crackling soft, her fingers tracing patterns on my knee, the wool of her shirt rough under my touch, passion simmering reserved, intense as the quiet build before rain. Chores transformed, roping calves together, her laugh vibrating through me as we wrestled the rope, bodies tangled, brief in the dust, turning effort intimate, alive. Reflection came in quiet moments. Heartbreak's lesson, settling like sediment after flood. That past ache, once a chasm swallowing light, taught me the danger of loose soil, how one storm could wash away foundations, leaving gullies too deep to climb. She'd been the ridge all along, unyielding, drawing me from the brink without force. Terrified of letting in, I'd craved her stability from afar, fearing the pull would uproot us both. But now, in her arms under starlit sky, I saw the truth. Vulnerability wasn't fracture, but fertile ground. Heartbreak carved space for this, her steady hands mending what broke, turning scars to strength. The terror faded, replaced by certainty. Her presence the water I'd sought, nourishing roots long parched. Stability wasn't absence of storm, but enduring through it, together. Like the ranch itself, weathering winds and drought. Sunset rides became ritual, horses picking slow paths along the western ridge, sky bleeding orange and purple over the flats. One evening, as the light dipped low, painting the grass gold, we reined in at the overlook, the world sprawling vast below. She reached for my hand, fingers intertwining, firm. Calluses meshing like puzzle pieces worn smooth by time. Palms pressed, warmth spreading deep, her thumb stroking my wrist in lazy circles. The land stretched endless, ridges folding into shadow, but in that hold, isolation felt full, connected. Wind whispered through the scrub, carrying sage and cooling air, her gaze meeting mine, unflinching. Love solid as the earth under our mounts. Resolution solidified there, love enduring as the land. Rooted deep, bending but unbroken, weathering whatever came. 5 years of buried pull bloomed full. Partnership evolved to something unbreakable. The ranch our witness, holding us steady. The cabin door clicked shut behind us that first night, sealing the new beginning with no room for regret. The weight of 5 years lifting like fog burned off by dawn. We stepped into the yard, hands still linked. The ranch stretching vast and welcoming under the emerging stars. Her fingers squeezed mine, a promise rooted deep as the cottonwoods by the creek. No more hiding in the silences. This was home, solid and shared. If this quiet truth resonates, the slow thaw of fear into connection, the pull of steady hands across a gearshift, share your story below. What moment shifted everything for you? Subscribe for more Sapphic tales of finding home in unexpected places, where love endures like the land itself.